I've done a cold plunge every day for almost 500 days. I'm going to share with you things I've learned about cold plunging and share some tips if you're just getting started.
I'm at the gym. I'm about to kick off a second session for the day, and I have a list of all of the benefits of cold plunging by Andrew Huberman. So here they are, and I'll tell you which ones I relate to the most. First, it boosts blood flow and immunity. I can't attest that that's actually happening in my body, but I do trust that there is an increased blood flow, which can lead to a better immunity, and I'm just trusting that that's probably happening, but I don't actually feel any results from that, so I'm just trusting the science on that one. It reduces pain and improves mood. So as far as pain relief, I get that. I mean, cold often desensitizes nerves and will make pain go away. So I guess after I get out of the cold plunge in the mornings, I do feel less pain. Like if I'm sore or achy, I probably feel that less, but that's not really a huge effect for me. But the boost in mood is significant. I find that when I do a cold plunge every morning, regardless of how I feel getting in, like I'm not a morning person. So I just do the work, I get in the cold plunge. When I get out, I feel invigorated. I feel motivated. I feel energized. I'm also freezing. I mean, that's reality, but I feel good. It's really crazy. And I think some of that is just the internal reward of like, I did something hard today. There's definitely some chemical reactions going on in my body. It can enhance metabolism and weight loss. So I'm not super focused on that. My metabolism is fine. I don't really need to lose weight, but this is something that's absolutely documented. There's an increase in brown fat, which is responsible for body thermoregulation, and it reduces white fat. So I'm just happy with those. I don't feel those directly, but again, that's one of these things that's been tested that even if I didn't have the psychological benefits of the cold plunge, I'd be doing it just for these. It improves glucose metabolism and insulin sensitivity. So these are great things for metabolic health. And I don't know if I've noticed these specifically because I'd already been training for about 10 years when I started using the ice barrel. So I'm just glad that these are part of the benefits that I get from the cold exposure. I may get a lot of benefits, but it's nice to have these all working under the engine. It's sort of like, I imagine if I was to take my truck in for a tune-up, I don't notice it running better. I just know that it's running better because I did the proper work and maintenance on the vehicle. I guess that would be the best analogy I could think of. Cold plunging builds resilience and grit. And this is probably the strongest reason why I do it and why I've done it for 500 days. I love the idea of doing hard things. I do that in training every day. I do it in business. I mean, there's nothing easy about life in general. And I think when we're able to step towards things that are very, very hard, it pulls us out of our comfort zone, pulls us out of our routine. And there's nothing more physically challenging than just getting into freezing cold water in the morning. And it's even more challenging now that we're in Colorado for a month. It's freezing outside in the mornings. And the last thing I want to do is go outside in Speedos and get into 36-degree water. But I do it. And after I do it, I feel great. I feel satisfied. I feel like I accomplished something significant first thing in the morning, and that just propels me into the rest of the day. I also feel like it gives me a competitive advantage. Every day I expose myself to something so incredibly challenging for my brain and my physical body. And when it comes to competing, I feel like it gives me this edge, like I can go just a little bit more. I can push it a little bit more. I can feel and tolerate a little more pain. And I do think that cold exposure every day has added that just extra element of grit to my competitive edge, for sure. It increases dopamine levels, and I am a dopamine addict. I think we all are to a certain extent. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I know that this is a dopamine release mechanism. There's lots of little things that can create dopamine highs and lows throughout the day, but I do know that Andrew Huberman talks about the cold plunge will create this dopamine dump that will last for hours, and it's really good for focus and productivity. And I find that as well. I feel like I can get up in the morning, do the cold plunge, get into work and be incredibly productive, and then also train and work and train and just, manage my way through a day being highly productive with an increased level of overall dopamine, at least throughout the morning, maybe throughout the day. Cold plunging reduces systemic inflammation. I'm going to read this. Cold therapy reduces both localized and systemic inflammation. This is beneficial in managing conditions like rheumatoid arthritis and fibromyalgia. It also provides systemic anti-inflammatory relief and increases a positive immune response. Again, it's like maintenance under the hood. I'm glad it does that. I don't know if I feel it doing that, but I'm very glad that that's going on in my body when I'm cold plunging. It improves heart rate variability. Okay, so we wear Whoops, we wear Apple Watches, we wear Garmins, and we have trackers that track our heart rate variability. I want to improve my heart rate variability, of course. As an athlete, as a human being, that's something that I'm always trying to achieve, whether it's getting great sleep, turning off my devices, taking third seat before I go to sleep every night. I'm trying to do everything I can to increase my heart rate variability. And cold plunging is certainly just a part of that. It's a piece of a huge puzzle of improving my overall heart rate variability. And I'm stoked that it does that too. Okay, so here's another one that's kind of an under the hood benefit. It's called vasoconstriction benefits. Vasoconstriction benefits. So I'm not a scientist. I am reading that particular portion right here. Cold plunge therapy initiates vasoconstriction of blood vessels, aiding in reducing pain, fatigue, and swelling. So that's great. It may also serve as a preventative measure against dementia, including Alzheimer's disease. All right, again, just body maintenance happening on a daily basis with a cold plunge. I don't see those benefits, but I'll take them. And the last thing on the list is mental health support. It activates hormonal responses that are beneficial for our mental health. And I definitely feel that. I mean, from the increased motivation, decreased anxiety and stress. I'm the kind of guy that runs pretty high RPMs in general, but I know that the ice barrel with that stimulus is so intense, and then getting out and getting to work, I know that dopamine levels are high, my productivity is high, but I don't feel like my RPMs are spinning out of control. And that's something that I've felt a lot historically in my life. So I think that may be something that I'll pay attention to into the future, thinking about like, wow, I didn't think about my decreased RPMs until now, but I really think that that is a part of what I've experienced in the last year. So I'll pay attention to that. I'll let you know in the future if that is something that continues.
Here's a couple of tips to help you get started with cold plunging. I've got the Ice Barrel 300 here. The first tip is to start with water that's not as cold. If the water's below 60 degrees, it will still create a nice cold plunge effect as you're getting started in this. You don't have to start in water that's 36 degrees. Today's water for me is 46 degrees, but it didn't start that way. Tip number 2, start slow. And what I mean by that is actually start with shorter durations. The ultimate goal is to do this daily for 3 minutes a day. But when you start, maybe start with 20 seconds. And then the next day, maybe 25 seconds, then 30 seconds. You can build up over time, and you'll find that in no time, you'll work your way up to 2 to 3 minutes. Huberman says we want to get 11 minutes a week in total. I just round that as like, 3 minutes a day works for me because I'm just going to do this as part of my habit. Tip number 3, consistency is key. Again, if you're doing this, even if you're starting slow, find a way to be consistent. Do this every day. Commit to it every day. Unless you're traveling, unless you're out of town and you can't do it. Get in this thing first thing in the morning, every single day. That consistency actually makes it a little bit easier. I find that if I do travel, the couple of times I have in the past year, the morning I wake up after I've gotten back, it's a little harder for me to get in the ice barrel. So just make it a part of your life, do it consistently. And the last tip is to use a breathing technique or a breathing method to help you navigate your way into the cold water. Wim Hof has some breathing techniques that are really beneficial. You can just search those on YouTube. It involves deep and aggressive inhale and exhales before you get into the cold water, and it's helpful. It helps prime your mind, prime your body. It really kind of wakes up your central nervous system, and then the cold plunge does the rest. Those are the tips to get going, and ultimately just do it. Just start. Give it a go. No one regrets trying something new like this, and it's been a big game changer in my world. So now it's time for me to do it. I'm gonna set my watch for 3 minutes on a countdown, get in the water, do my cold plunge. Easy. Support the channel by clicking the subscribe button and liking this video. Remember, your best days are ahead of you. Get bolder, not older.